Hello, Human Collective. Welcome to the Upside to Grief. My name is Story, and I am your host.
And my name is Erica, and I am your co host.
And this week we are welcoming on Sage Robinson. She is the co founder of Nobody Plans on Dying. We're very excited to have you.
Super excited.
Thank you. And I am happy to be here.
Yay, we're so happy that you're here. We're really looking forward to talking to you and hearing about your story and what's going on with your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole journey and how you got to where you are now.
I'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Okay, well, let's just dive right in then.
Okay.
Who are we going to be talking about today?
My husband, Danny.
Danny. Okay, I want to ask about nicknames because I love nicknames. I always try to tell people I'm Erica with a K. And
She is Erica with a K.
I'm Erica with a K.
Absolutely.
But my dad's nickname for me was Dee Dee, Darling Daughter, or Darling Devochka. So did Danny have any nicknames?
Yeah. Well, Danny Boy. His father used to call him Danny Boy, and so that stuck with him. So a lot of people knew him as Danny Boy.
I love that.
And his full name was Daniel Vincent Grebe.
Daniel Vincent Grebe.
Danny.
Danny Boy.
Danny Boy.
I love that. It's like Pony Boy, Golden Boy,
It's
Danny
like,
Boy.
I feel like it keeps like your young spirit, like the
Youthful.
fun, adventurous. Like that's what I think of when I hear Danny Boy.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
like not taking life so seriously and like just living it.
Yeah, he's
That
not
was him.
dumb.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, you just described him.
So what was he like? Tell us more.
He was definitely that fun spirit. He was a leader. Everybody loved him. He was so charismatic, and when he walked into a room, everybody knew it. He just had this presence, and he was always the center of attention. And I don't think it was just naturally that way.
I was about to say, like, did he try to be? You know how, like, some people, they just kind of, like, command it, and some people, it's just...
It's just like
want it.
magnetized to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a Leo, and he just
Fire.
naturally was that, and he was a natural leader, and like he was always just the guy, that everybody wanted to do things with, and everybody wanted to hang out with, and I didn't know not one person that didn't love him, that knew him, and he was that guy that like would get all his friends to hike up a mountain, and he'd run circles around them while they're going up, and yeah, just amazing, free spirit, fun, funny, loved the fog.
How did you guys meet?
I was 12 years old when I met him down at the beach in Mission Beach, and we had a crush on each other, but we didn't stay together at that time. It was really like this secretive. I was like still like, oh, I can't show public affection, So we would like hold hands and stuff in secret, and I wasn't. We didn't end up, going anywhere with it. I ended up getting mad at him for something, and we were young, yeah, and we didn't like get together until I was 22.
Gotcha. So what were you guys doing in the meantime? Like, did your lives ever cross paths during that time, or were you off like doing your own things?
A little of this, like a little
Yeah.
of that, yeah. But when we connected, we were inseparable. It was like from that very first day that we got together when I was 22. I knew it, and I've never felt this way, about anyone else. And but I knew in that moment that like I could marry this guy and be happy for the rest of my life. And he felt the same way, and just stayed that way. Like that never went away.
That's special.
crash into each other.
Yeah.
So you guys come back together when you're in your 20s, and then what is life like for you two?
Bliss. I mean, it was just bliss. Like, he was my home, you know? It's just like you find it's your person and it feels like home. It feels like, that they know me so thoroughly. They love every part of me unconditionally. And we loved each other, so unconditionally. And like trust wasn't even a factor. Like there's no mistrust because you know that you're,
It's just there.
yeah,
Like you didn't ever have to
like no one
talk
could
about it.
ever compete with this, so there's no lack of trust, and it's just bliss. Like I used to thank God, every day for bringing me him in my life. And it was playful, and we always had fun. We always did road trips, and we had the best relationship, honestly, for many, many years.
You guys were together for quite some time, yeah?
Yeah, we were married for 11 and a half years. We got a little rocky near the end, when, but yeah, we were together for a lot of years, and you don't think that you're ever going to grow old with anybody else. You don't think that it's ever going to end. And at least I didn't think,
I'm sure
that.
you guys talked about your future all the time.
Of course, yeah. We would joke and talk about being on the front porch and like old and yelling at the whippersnappers going by. Yeah. There was more to it because there's shock value. Like we had this shock value thing. Like we were young and crazy and like wild, and so there was more to it. But yeah.
Get these whippersnappers off my lawn. He sounds so fun.
He was so fun. He was the funnest. It didn't matter what we were doing. We just had a blast, and yeah.
So when did you guys get married, and did you do like a whole wedding, or was it like courthouse style, or was it secret or very public? What was it like?
Yeah. So we had talked about getting married, and we were engaged to be married, and and he ended up getting arrested for just being at my house. He didn't actually do anything wrong. He was getting off paper, but anyway, long story short, he got arrested for something he didn't really do, kind of thing, And so I wanted to make sure that, that I could be with him 100%. So I went and I married him actually behind glass.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
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 By any means.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, we got to do it like this. So once he got out, then did you guys celebrate?
Yeah, for sure. It didn't last that long. I had, he was always my motivation too. Is like, I was like, don't worry, I got us. We got this. And that happened. And so I ended up getting us a place that was really beautiful that we were talking about moving into anyway before he got arrested. And so it was in Point Loma, a townhouse, gorgeous. And so I ended up getting that for us, and getting everything set up for when he came home so he could be all excited and we could start our little life, and that, yeah, it was beautiful.
That's awesome. So you just set everything up so that when he came home, like you guys just had like this, You already had
Your little
bliss.
sanctuary.
Yeah, and now you have like a little sanctuary too to just like start life.
Yeah.
So cool.
I love that.
So then, what were the years like after that?
Mhm.
Because you guys were married for over a decade, so
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot happened.
Mm. You know, my mind just keeps going to like all the good memories right now,
Yeah.
and like doing a lot of road trips with him and being wild everywhere, and and he loved the fog. So like we would, every time it was foggy out, he wanted to go drive. So I would always
Mm.
drive in the fog, and we'd go somewhere where, like, we'd go towards the fog. He wanted the most fog. So we would always go
Fog chaser?
fog chase.
Fog
Yeah,
chaser.
totally. That was his thing. So we would always chase fog. And yeah, I mean, we had barbecues and we had so much fun. And I ended up having, so I had gotten in trouble prior to us even getting together, but they had waited a whole year before they even filed on me.
Mm.
And so we were already married by the time they filed on me. And I ended up going to court and having to fight that, and that took a while, but I ended up having to turn myself in.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple years into our marriage, and um, yeah, and so we ended up getting separated during that time. And while I was in, he got arrested. I learned that guys have a really hard time doing, like me. It gives me, I'm like, I got this, don't worry. And
Yeah.
him, he's like, I can't live without you. I'm gonna die. And that's the story. So like he ended up getting in trouble. So I came home and he was incarcerated, and then again, I got everything together for us, and I had everything set up, beautifully for when he came home. And so we kind of did that little dance a little bit in our relationship, but I got to do family visits with him, and I got to do all
Yeah.
the things, and yeah.
You were always waiting for each other on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that, but there was never any it didn't diminish our relationship at all, if that
Yeah.
makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
until yeah, like right before he was coming home, later, that time right before he was coming home, I had lied to him. I had, and my it's actually my sponsor at the time. She had told me, you can't tell him that. You need to tell him in person, not
Not when he's
not
locked
when
up.
he's locked up.
Mm.
And for us, like, we had no secrets ever. We could tell each other anything and we would get over it. And the reason why is because of the trust. And so in that moment, like, hindsight is 2020, but like that, it kind of destroyed our trust,
Mm.
because it was a lie. It wasn't being fully honest. And so when he came home, he acted a little different, and he was like going through my drawers, and like I could see
Yeah.
the anger coming out, a little bit. Um, and so there was that we had to get through. And that was kind of like the rocky time, is like trying to prove myself again,
Mm-hmm.
and getting so that, he wouldn't feel that way, anymore. And
Yeah.
mhm.
And did you end up proving yourself, do you think?
I do, as far as that's concerned. He was sober at that time for 7 years, 7.5 years
Yeah.
before he ended up relapsing. And I was sober, and I knew that at that moment, that if I went with him, or if I was around him, I would end up getting high with him, and I couldn't do that. In that moment, I was still strong in my recovery, and I was like, you have to leave. You can't be here, because, and as much as it killed me, it freaking killed me. It was so hard not to go rescue him or pick him up, or because I wanted to, so many times. And But because I was, I was standing strong, and he ended up sleeping with my friend to try and get my attention so that
Mm-hmm.
he was high. He wasn't in his right mind, you know? And
Yeah.
he thought that that would make me let him back in kind of thing. And it didn't. It just made me more angry, I think, and I became like righteously indignant about it. You guys are perfect for each other. You know? And I ended up relapsing. And I got in trouble. And then he showed up on my doorstep, and he found out from my mom that I got in trouble, and so he showed up on my doorstep and he said, you don't know it, but you need me right now. What are you doing? I'm not going anywhere, and I think that's all I wanted from him, was to like fight for me and to show me. And he was sober again at that time, and I wasn't. And he ended up getting high with me. Excuse me. And but he didn't leave my side, and when he told me, I'm going to be there for you. Remember, I said the last time he couldn't hang and he ended up getting in trouble, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this time he was like, I'm going to be there for you like you were for me. I promise. He wanted to prove that to me. And I said, okay, but not if you're getting high, you won't. So
Mm-hmm.
he went and he got sober for me. And, well, for that, because he wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And he went to his mom's house, and I didn't. I told him, well, I don't have to get sober. I was still, um, I was high. I was high. That's one thing. And I wanted to stay getting high. And that's the truth. But the other part of it was, I never knew then, like, what to do with the pain. And so I thought that if you hurt me, be sleeping with my friend, which is something that I never did. I felt like, well, you should be willing to suffer until I say uncle,
Mm-hmm.
to prove to me you're sorry. And looking back now, it's like that wasn't love, but that's how I interpreted you being willing to prove yourself, and that meant love, and it created more pain. And so anyway, he went to his mom's house to get clean. I didn't. I was like, I don't have to get clean. You do. If you want to prove it to me. So he did. And he had I had it was like 90 days in. He was clean for 90 days, and he wanted to see me that weekend, and I told him that he could have one of the days, not two, because he tried telling me, okay, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow. And I was like, whoa, 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 you're not running nothing.
I make the decisions.
I do,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because I'm still righteously indignant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that energy, and so I told him, I'll give you one day. I'm not giving you both. And truth is, I wanted to stay using, and but I also wanted to see him. So that was my reason. And we got off the phone. We got in an argument on the phone, and he's told me that he was tired of feeling second best, and the pain had just gotten to him too much, where he was willing to suffer, but he was suffering. And we got in an argument, and we hung up the phone, and he went and relapsed. And that's when he died.
Mm. How did you find
Um, they had my mother's phone number as a contact for me. And so they called, and they told her. She called me, and she said, I need you to come here. I need to see you. We need to talk, but it has to be in person. And, I thought maybe it had something to do with something else. I had no idea that it was this. And I showed up, and she told me, and my legs went out from under me, and I couldn't breathe. And I just started screaming, and, my heart broke. And I've never felt that much pain in my entire life. As I'm sure you know, it's like that. It's so painful. And I was kind of like in this numb state for months where I was just trying to use as much substances as possible to try and kill the pain. And there was nothing that could drown it out. And it was just spiraling.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah. I had a friend with me. Her name's Hope. You guys probably know her. And she was with me at the time, and she did not leave my side, and I'm so grateful for her for that, because like she didn't really do anything, but she just being there with me during that time. Like, she did not leave. And granted, yes, I was taking care of her, but at the same time, like, I was not fun to be around. Like, I know
Mm-hmm.
that, like, I was a drag. Like, there comes a point where it's like people, expect you to get over it or something, and how do you get over that? I had no idea how to, like, it's like that's ridiculous, and so, I just wasn't fun to be around, and people stopped kind of reaching out, I think, to hang out with me, and she did not leave my side, and that meant so much to me. Mm.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I wanted to honor him and have this celebration of life, and I had rented out this Santa Clara it down in at the beach, because that's where we're from, right? And so I wanted to have it at the beach, and I wanted to have it be a celebration of life. And he loved meat. He was like, he loved his meat. He would say, meat, I want meat. And so, like, I made sure that we had meat there, and somebody barbecuing, the meat, and he loved music, so I wanted a band, and I wanted to be celebration. And he and I got up on stage, where I'm like supposed to talk, and I think I there was no way that I could, like, at that time I was just a mess. I was such a mess, and I got up there, and I think I said something to the effect of, "Nobody's ever gonna love me like he did," something like that, right? And it was
Yeah.
just downer. I wanted it to be a celebration, but I hadn't processed my grief enough, to be able to be in that place yet. It was still a very I lost you feeling, you know, and it was all about me and how I was feeling, and how it affected me, which is normal,
Mm-hmm.
normal part of the grief, but I couldn't move from that, especially, I think, using substances. It's like I just couldn't move from that place of pain, and yeah.
Yeah, just stuck in it.
Mhm.
So, at what point after that, when did you stop using substances during that period when you were grieving?
It wasn't until I got arrested and I had to go to jail, right? Remember? So I told him I had to turn myself in. So it wasn't until I actually turned myself in. And during that time, like, I mean, just crazy. Just a crazy time, but um I turned myself in, and I was a mess.
I could only imagine. Yeah.
And they came and took me. So, like, they actually took me from the hospital because I had tried to kill myself, and it didn't work, which is so insane because I'm not a pill popper. And anyway, long story short, a miracle happened. I didn't die, and they picked me up from the hospital, and so I ended up having to go in. And I was in this jail cell. I remember being there, and I was just a mess. And they said, "I think you might benefit from some medication."
Oh, is that what you think?
They always want to give you, something.
Uh-huh.
So at the time I was like, yeah, whatever you have, give it to me.
Give me all you got.
Yeah,
I'll take your highest dose.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. But I didn't know that it came with a 72-hour psychiatric observation. So they stuck me in this room, in what was like K mod, and it was um, all the all the people that were under psychiatric observation or psychiatric care. And so there was screaming happening. It was crazy in
Yes.
there. It was insane. And here I was, and they let me keep my clothes because I wasn't suicidal. Thank God for that. But they did take away my visits, my showers, my phone calls. They didn't give me anything to read, no pen, no paper, nothing. Like literally just me, the cot, and that's it for 3 days. And so all I could do was either count the spots on the wall, which I tried, or scream at my husband for leaving me and God, if there was one, because I didn't even know if there was one at that time, and if there was one, I felt like he was cruel and, I must be doomed to this life of suffering. And it wasn't until then um, that I felt the feelings. But it wasn't just the substances. Like my whole life, I had never learned how to surrender to pain. I thought that being strong meant that I had to not show my feelings, hold it in, be tough, turn it into anger, right? And that was a really good coping skill that I had mastered, was being angry, and so I had never learned how to just feel pain. It was always all the reasons why I shouldn't be feeling this way, all the reasons why it's somebody else's fault, right? And just fighting what is. And in that moment, I did it kicking and screaming, and I said, that, and I shared about, that sorry, I'm just remembering that moment, and I just got really emotional right now, but like not emotional, was my nervous system. It just hijacked my nervous system for a second. And so anyway, so I was there and I was screaming at God, and I told him, fine, you want me to effing feel pain, I guess you want me to suffer for the rest of my life, because he was the one thing in my life that I felt blessed for. Even through the ups and downs, he was the one. He was home. And so I finally surrendered to that pain.
That's fucking heavy. Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's such a beautiful experience to finally feel. And in there, I just imagined him holding me. He was just holding me while I just sobbed. And my higher power was there because I was screaming at him. So I had both my husband and my higher power there. And, it was only through that surrendering to the pain that, that literally had me feel him, and feel peace, and this surrendering to what is, like I was fighting it.
So you finally felt a moment of just peace and clarity?
Yeah. It wasn't even just that, it was a huge shift in perspective. At the end of those 3 days, I had this image of this eye in the storm, and I was that eye of the storm. And everything shifted, like how I viewed myself, how I viewed the world. I could see that whatever I resist persists. I can see that, like, that I had created my own suffering for so long. I saw clearly. I could see the damage that I had done. Like prior to that, it's like I was I was a stripper, and I was manipulative, and I hurt a lot of people. And I always was able to justify it by saying, we're
Mhm.
all adults here. We know what we're doing. Like, there was always this justification in my mind about the behaviors that I was doing. And in that moment, I really saw myself clearly. And it wasn't with like a guilt and shame that
Mm.
was attached to it. There wasn't any guilt and shame. It was a responsibility, and it was just clear, whereas everything shifted. And I literally had a spiritual awakening in that moment. And my husband became one with me. And I knew there was a purpose for me. That also came through. It's like I had never felt like there was a purpose in it. Like I said, in that moment, I was screaming about how my life was just suffering. I was kicked out at 12, and I had a rough life,
Yeah.
But at that moment, and I had never felt this way, but at that moment, I knew that there was a purpose for me. And I felt like he was my angel. And I felt like all of this, was a gift from him to see. And it just took me surrendering to the pain, you know? It was such a gift. And I thought, oh my gosh, why doesn't the world know about this? Like, everybody's running from their pain, and like, just go
Mm.
into it. It's actually a portal to freedom. And
Mhm.
like, pain is inevitable, right? They say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I don't know that's necessarily true for someone who like me that was so unconscious of how I was creating the suffering. But once I was aware of how I created the suffering, now I understood, that like I was creating the suffering, and the grief that I was feeling was just such, of course, it's love that has no place to go. That's what grief is. And it's a beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful that I got to feel that, because it was only because of the amount of love that I have for my husband that I feel that. And I still feel that to this day. Not in that level. There's been many stages, but like, I'll never not feel that, and it's beautiful because it's a testament to the love. And I feel like he was the one person that taught me that I was worth loving. And he was the one person that taught me what love actually was, what unconditional love actually was. Like, I had never experienced that in my entire life, not from my parents, not from anyone, until him. And to have that experience I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because it gave me an expanded lens
Mm.
of
Mhm.
knowing, and he continues, and in that moment, he had continued to give me an expanded lens. It's like all the things. And so it's a beautiful part of the process is actually surrendering to the pain, and I don't think that there's that is known when we're in it. When we're in it, there's
Mhm.
always that stage, the denial, the resistance, the anger, the guilt, the shame. Like, all of that is so normal. Like, I had so much guilt and shame, especially because he went and got loaded from an argument with me on the phone, and so there was so much like, why, how should I be living if he's dead? Like, I have no right to be. I tried to kill myself, like, I had no right to be alive after that. Like, there was so much guilt and shame. And um and and in that moment, it was absolved. It was absolved. Like, everything shifted. And that part, that part had been processed. And I think the best tools, that I had was like writing, during and like I still missed him so much, and I still cried all the time, and I, it still like fluctuated, and there was times where it was like I felt like I understood in that moment, like the gift of surrendering, the gift of giving him to my higher power kind of thing, and knowing that like life is so short that I'm going to see him again soon. Like it's really just a blip in time. And I
Mhm.
know that I'm going to get to actually see him and like he's with me, anyway. And
Mhm.
like I feel him and I know he's with me. And when I would write him, it would just help me to keep him close.
Yeah.
And I did that every day. But prior to me feeling the pain, it was, that initial writing, like I for his um
Celebration of life.
yeah, no, not that,
Mm.
Obituary.
for his cremation. For his
Mm.
cremation, we had a ceremony, right?
Okay.
And I went to his mom's house, and I was a mess. They blamed me, but she didn't act like it then. I think she just wanted to make sure that she got part of his ashes, and maybe at that time she wasn't feeling that. I don't know. Maybe she was just appeasing me. I don't know, um, but I was a mess, and I was writing him letters, because I wanted to be able to give him the letters, and on the day that we were getting him cremated, and so I wrote him then, and it was just I left nothing left unsaid, but it was really that the first stages of that writing where it was just the anger for him leaving and the guilt and shame for the I'm sorries, and just really getting all of that out. And I got to read that to him, during the cremation service, and that was beautiful. And he had all his favorite pictures that he had in his photo album, and so I got to make copies of all of his favorite pictures and put them on him to be burned with him. And I got to oh my gosh, and the story, I have to tell the story. So then, he always made me laugh when he was like, we always laughed. He was so fun and so funny, and I was just so distraught in that moment, and they thought there was like foul play, and so they gave him an autopsy, and because of that they had to cut his head open to see if it was murder. It wasn't. The guy just left him for dead and wiped down all the prints because he was a
Mm.
scared addict, and that's what happens sometimes,
Right.
and so, but they thought there was foul play, and so they had I gave them his favorite hat to put on him, and so I was talking to him, and I was playing the song he had dedicated to me the week before he died, that I found out from his stepfather about, and his hat, and I was crying, and I was reading the letter, and like the hat, because of the swelling, kept going rising up. It just kept rising up, and I was cracking up. I was like, I know this is you, and I know he was laughing, and yeah, I couldn't even be serious, and it's like, yeah, but there was a different energy, than after I finally surrendered to the pain in that way.
So you surrendered to the pain, you're doing work on yourself, and then I know, I mean, you've briefly said in other times that once you got back to normal life, then that was a whole different thing, right? When you got out. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I felt like I had to go through the grieving process kind of all over again,
Mhm.
because now I'm coming home and being without him,
Yeah.
for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. And when I was without him before, it was a very small time,
Mm-hmm.
and
And you knew where he was, like
I,
physically.
yeah, right. And I knew that if I could
Yeah.
call him and he would be there. I was just angry at the time. but coming home and knowing that, like, okay, I have to do like life without him to, he's not, I can't plan it with him anymore. Like, he's not here. And I was so, it was lonely, and then, like, yeah, I went through that whole grieving process again, of course, just all the things, like doing the things. And then, you know, like, we go and do something, and it's like it reminds you of him, and everything I did reminded me of him, and I had all the things of his in my house, of course. I
Mhm.
love him, and I had given his clothes to his favorite nephew, because he was really close to my nephew, the oldest, and so I gave him all the clothes, and I still had them, like, all the things that just remind me of my husband and not
Mhm.
being there with me. And yeah, it was really tough. And I had stayed celibate, for a while. And I know, yes, I was incarcerated, but at the same time I had a whole bunch of marriage proposals, right? And I was like, no, because of that spiritual awakening that I had, I saw that I was hurting people, with my behavior, and I didn't want to do that ever again. And it's like that was part of my amends to my husband, to the anger that I had, and not knowing, that wasn't love. Like, love is, isn't telling someone that they should suffer until you say uncle. That's not love. That's pain. That's
Mhm.
hurt people hurting people.
Mhm.
And so when I saw that, that just became part of my story and my new identity. Like, I absolutely am not going to hurt anyone ever again, and I had let go of doing all of that. And so, therefore, if even when they said, oh, well, just, it'll just be for fun, we'll get married, that way we can have conjugal visits, even though they said that. And I was like, oh, well, yes, it would make my time easier, but no, because I already know that you're going to end up with more feelings than me. And or something like that, and I'm gonna end up hurting you,
Mhm.
and I couldn't do those things anymore. And I loved my husband so much. It was like it just felt like like there was no possible way that I could do that again, you know. And so anyway, so I stayed celibate even after I was free for another year and a half. And so just getting to really sit with those lonely feelings, because I feel like, those first few months, it's like I did everything I could to run from the pain, including substances, like everything I could to try and cover up the pain, and nothing could cover it up. And then realizing that, like, going into the pain was actually the solution.
Yeah.
And so, like, allowing myself to be lonely, allowing myself to miss him, and to go through that grieving process, and to not try and cover it up by dating somebody else, not trying to cover up by filling it in with anything outside of me, just sitting with those sacred emotions was an honoring to him,
Mhm.
and to myself, and the portal to freedom,
Mhm.
So it's like, it is just another sacred time. And the best thing I ever did for myself, was to break myself of that, um, addiction of needing to have attention,
Mhm.
to feel valuable, and um, and to give myself that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grief really is a portal. It's I definitely think that it was a gift from my dad, and I would return it if I could have him back again.
Absolutely.
But like it really did open all those doors, especially if you're willing to be open and
Mhm.
receive that in the first place. And we're just like not taught how to do that. So it really is a miracle that you had that moment of clarity and that process, no matter how long it took, of just like being able to sit in your feelings and not fill it with anything else.
Yeah,
Crazy things come through.
it was grace. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It was grace, and the pressure cooker.
Mm.
What I've noticed is, like, we hit our bottoms, right? It's like the bottom with the grief. It's like the bottom with the grief was so strong in that moment. It's like that pressure cooker popped the lid off of it. and it was grace. It was grace because in that surrendering, it's like I didn't know that I was surrendering. I had no idea that's what I was doing. I was doing it kicking and screaming,
Yeah.
like I was a professional victim, not knowing, but I was, it was like, fine, you want me to effing feel this pain, right? And like I literally did it kicking and screaming, it was the martyr. And but I it was the only first time in my life that I actually just felt pain without all the stories attached to it.
Yeah. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
I think this might be backtracking on the timeline a little bit, but you had said there was a phone call with Danny's dad.
Yeah. No, so it wasn't a phone call. Oh, well, actually, it was a phone call. That's not true. It was a phone call, but then I got to see him in person. So it was
Okay.
both. Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it was a phone call with Danny's dad, and he told me, he said that Danny had dedicated this song to me the week before he died, and all week he was making his stepdad play it over and over and over and over again, and he was planning on giving it to me, dedicating it to me that weekend. But he said it drove him nuts. And he told him, he's like, if you ask me to play that song one more time, I'm going to make you get up and dance with me. And he's like, okay, because that was my husband. He's the fun spirit. So he got up and he showed me that he put his finger on his head and twirled and like was the goofball, because that's how he was. He was a goofball, but he was cool,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he did that. And yeah, so the song was um, I Had a Choice by Sun. And it's so funny because like that song, it pertained more to, yes, it pertained to, many, many times, but it's like it talks about in the song, it says, I had a choice and I chose wrong. I made a promise to leave it alone. Um, I gave you trust and you threw it away. Or you gave me trust and I threw it away. And and after he died, it really hit home.
Yeah.
And so I would play it all the time too, just like he made his dad play it. And I played it at his cremation, and it was, and there's something I just love him. I just love him so much, and I know that he would have never done that on purpose. He had the biggest heart.
He was really creative too, right? Didn't he make things?
Yeah, yeah. So he gave me this. I still have it. He made this box for me. It's like a chest. He made it out of 3 different types of wood, and it was my anniversary slash Christmas present, because our anniversary and Christmas were really close together.
Oh, cool.
And so it was my anniversary slash Christmas present. It was made from 3 different types of wood, and it's beautiful. And you open it up, and it's lined with green velvet, and it has like different compartments in it. And on the top, it has this cutout brass. And it took him 9 months to make this box. And he had the outside brass looks like your. I have to take a picture of it for you, but it looks like your piano right there that I know you guys can't see, but it's like so intricate and detailed, little flowers and leaves, and anyway is brass. So he spent time like cutting that out by hand, and his hands were cut up and bleeding, and he still did it, and like the whole top is just like has that on the edges, and it's beautiful. And yeah, it's really nice. And his ashes are in there today. And I actually, it took me a few years, of after he passed away, but I finally went around the house and took the things, of his and put them in the box
The
to say
ones you wanted to
goodbye.
keep.
Yeah, to just say goodbye and get some closure, because I was still bringing him with me, and even when I did start dating again, it was like I was comparing everyone to him, it's like wanting to fill that spot, because and so it really wasn't until I went around the house and put everything in the chest, and you know went through this process of closure, and knowing that I'm going to see him, at the end of this life, right? When this meat suit is gone,
Mm-hmm.
that I was able to have a relationship where I wasn't trying to compare, you know, him to them to him. And that wasn't fair to them, but I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just a part of the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a lot. I it's just something my brain does, but like I just think like what if it was me, and I literally can't like put myself in other people's shoes when it comes to grief. Like it just isn't possible. I can be empathetic in almost every other situation, but like just not grief. And I'm okay with that. Like I don't want to, but my brain kind of naturally does it just cuz I want to be empathetic, not just sympathetic, but it's everybody's grief is so unique
Mm-hmm.
and different in how we process, if we process at all. And yeah, I'm just really, I admire you a lot for your story and how you, I mean, we both love people who turn pain into purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just, it's sacred and it's so powerful. And I feel like I wish everybody would do that because there'd be a little less pain in the world.
Yeah. Well, and when people go the other direction, it can be so destructive. It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But when I was in it, I had no idea how to pull myself out.
of
Yeah.
course.
I had no idea. It's like, I love being there for others today, that, like, I feel like I know that, like, when I get put in the path of someone
Mm-hmm.
that is going through grief, because it's hard to put ourselves in the shoes of someone who's grieving. And I think the rest of the world feels that way too,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because when I was grieving, so many people don't understand,
Yeah.
and they're scared. They're scared to call. They think you want to be alone. They think,
Yeah.
they think that, I figured you probably wanted space, or, feeling so alone. Everyone is doing that. Or when you show up and they think, you're not over it yet, like, I'm not that same girl that I was before this happened. Like, I'm just not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and people don't understand, and I think that a lot of it, and this is my own interpretation, is that a lot of people are running from their own pain still. The whole world, we're just taught, like, whether we're little girls or little boys, the especially Western civilization, I think that um, we are taught to anything other than happy, there must be something wrong with us.
Yep.
And this is taught to us in the ways that, oh, what's wrong? Do you want some candy? Here, let's make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, it's genuine love. It's not like it's coming from a bad place. Like, it's just that, like, we're so conditioned to do that, that we're not allowing ourselves to learn how. We're not allowing we've never learned how to just be with any emotion other than happy. And
Mm-hmm.
so it trains us to think that, okay, well, there must be something wrong with me. I have to fix it. I guess I need some candy to make it better if I'm not happy, right? There's something
Yeah.
wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it just creates that. And so therefore, when someone is unable to be there for themselves in pain, and they haven't been able to go towards that, then how can they go towards yours? How can they
Yeah.
sit with you in yours?
Yeah.
And so it's normal. I don't blame people that have an uncomfortability with it. That's normal. I'd
Oh,
say
absolutely.
90% of the people probably are going to fit into that bracket of it's going to be uncomfortable for them and they're going to want to not do it,
Yeah.
you know? So it's us, it's those 10% that's like been there, that really understands, that have been to the depth of that hell, of that pain, of that grief, that understand that loss. We may all have different experiences and processes, but
Mm-hmm.
that pain, we all know that level of pain, and that isn't relatable unless you've been through it. So getting to be there for another and sit with them, not needing to do anything, like that's such a gift,
It
you
is.
know? Such a gift. And but we can only get to that place where we can even do that for another when we've gotten to that place where we've done it for ourselves. Then we can do that. And then pain gets turned into purpose. Until then it's just allowing ourselves to feel and go through what we need to go through, you
Yeah.
know? And yeah, it's a beautiful part of the journey. And getting to it becomes an honoring,
Mm-hmm.
of my husband, and funny, we were talking about, my husband, like he'll always be my husband, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, and it just becomes an honoring, everything that I do, every time that I have worked in treatment and I get to sit across and help another, recovering addict, especially when they have an opioid addiction, right? And or in the nonprofit today, which I'll tell you about in a minute, or um, anytime I get to help someone else through their grief, and it just feels like love. It feels like my love for him. And
Yeah.
he didn't die in vain because of all the people that I've affected as a result of going through that grief. And there have been many, It's like there's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
And I I think of him as my angel, and I feel like, it, and it's like you don't ever want to, like, it sounds horrible to say, especially when you're in it, when somebody tells you everything happens for a reason, you want to say, yeah, fuck you,
Yeah.
right?
You can go fuck yourself.
Fuck you, like, how fucking dare you? And seeing now that, like, they say in the rooms, sometimes people have to die so that others can stay clean. It's like that same energy. I used to hear that and be like, fuck you to that too. It just didn't make any sense to me. And um, I just see how many lives he has affected with his one little life by his death.
Yeah.
And I see that it makes me feel better to 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 feel like he gave his life up to help everyone else.
Yeah.
And
There's
like it
comfort there.
becomes a sacred part of the journey, and that I get to do with him because he's with me and he's doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps. And to know that life is short, I'm going to see him again soon. But yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned you're doing nonprofit work now. Can you tell us
Mm.
more
Yeah. What's up with
about
that?
that? Talking about taking pain into purpose.
Yeah, so that's another level of it, is like when Clea, my partner, she called me when she first had the idea, and she said, we were just seeing so many people die all around us from fentanyl, and it was happening like every week to the point where our community was literally getting numb to it. It's like you're getting invited to this one, that one, people aren't. I was seeing the energy dissipate with, like, even the care towards the families because it was happening so much,
Yeah.
that it wasn't a shocker anymore. And we had lost, Clea had lost one of the kids that was that used to do service with us when we would go do our community outreach with, our dollface,
Mhm.
and he, and she was mentoring him. He was an artist, and he was a really talented artist, and he was just a kid. Anyway, he died of an overdose, and she called me and she said, "Do you want to do a documentary? It feels like, we want to honor these lives of people, so they're not just another statistic."
Yeah.
And my first reaction was yes, absolutely. And it's because of my husband, and that I felt such a strong yes to
Yeah.
that. It's like, yeah, I want to do that. And then to take it into the schools to be able to show. And since then, we've created curriculum
Oh,
that we get to give to the students.
what is the name of your nonprofit?
Nobody plans on dying.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, which is really funny when we did it when we had the event at the marathon and they were coming off, and anyway, coming off the run, and they're like, but it fits for our nonprofit. But anyway, yeah, so it's beautiful, and it has grown into, we've created curriculum to give to the teachers to do with the students, and so we show the documentary. We're doing a series. We're shooting our second documentary now, and a couple kids that had lost their life, and it's turned into an intervention program with that we are piloting right now, and so that's a beautiful part of it, and get to hopefully help shift the trajectory for these kids, and that's the goal. And yeah.
Making that connection early on before they get into that life, yeah?
Yeah, and another part of that too is like I think a little, it heals a little part of me as well, because not just with Danny, and honoring him, and but also because when I was a kid, like I think I mentioned, I got kicked out at 12 years old, right?
Mhm.
Well, in school, I would act out a lot because I didn't know what to do with all my emotions, and anger became my coping skill. And when we act out, we get punished for the ways that we're acting out. But nobody ever asked me like what was going on,
Mm.
what's going on at home? Why are you acting out?
Yeah.
There was no lifeline,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it's still going on, and it's not their fault. It's just the resources,
Yeah.
so getting to be that resource,
You get to be that lifeline.
getting to be that lifeline,
Mhm.
exactly, and offering mentorship and resources, and um, whatever those resources are that they need, getting to connect them with that, but then also giving them programs that inspire self-esteem and character, and help them get connected to what they're passionate about. And that they tell us, in recovery, we want to create a life that we don't want to lose, right?
Yeah.
Something that there's no way we would give it up.
Mhm.
And why aren't we doing that for the kids early?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Helping them build the life
Right.
that they don't want to
Exactly.
shift to another life. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like they teach us, right? I went to school for substance abuse and all of that, and in school we learned what all of the treatment facilities basically are built on. If you've heard of like Rat Park experiment.
Tell us about Rat Park
Yeah.
Experiment.
So Rat Park experiment was years ago. They had rats in cages, right? And with the drugs, and every single time the rat would continue to do the drug until it killed itself.
Mm.
Like and they said, okay, well, that's addiction in a nutshell. Guy came along and said, yeah, but look at its environment. It's alone and isolated. Let's change its environment and see what happens. So they created Rat Park. And Rat Park, they were able to have all the connection, that they wanted, sex, all the good things,
Other
and
rats,
yeah,
sex,
yeah,
carousel.
yeah, yeah,
Activities.
and rarely did they ever see a rat go back even a second time to the substance. And never did it go back to kill itself.
Wow. I
So
feel like that says so much.
It
it
does.
does. And so what we learned about that is the cure for addiction is connection and love, right? So when in substance abuse treatment facilities, you have when you go into intake, you get uh, you have like 5 categories that you do the intake in,
Mhm.
depending on the treatment facility, right? But 5 categories you go through the intake, and it's basically to find out what are the pain points and where are we disconnected from. So if it's home life, that or feeling lonely and isolated, then we want to help get a support group, right?
Mhm.
If it's mental health, then we want to help bring that up. So whatever it is, however low you score in those, we want to help that person to bring it up so that they get the connection back in those areas. In essence, it creates the life that we don't want to lose.
Mhm.
And so if we do that young, and like nobody asked me, why are you acting out, what's going on at home, it's like if we're able to do that from a young age, and then we can help shift the trajectory to those
Yeah.
that want it and those that need it. And so that's the goal, but we're literally in the testing phase right now. And
It's exciting though. It's
yeah,
Yeah.
something new.
yeah.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and we just shot our first family for this documentary, and we're excited to tell her and her family's story because she was another little girl in our community, and you would know her friends, and and then this other kid, we're gonna go shoot him this month, this next month, and his family. And so just excited to tell these stories, and it really um, I see how healing it is, to get to have people tell their stories of their loved ones. And and our goal is to break the stigma and to show that, like, these are this is your family, these can be your family, this is your sister, your brother, your friend,
Yeah.
and not that I see any difference between them and the homeless guy in junkie in the alley, because I don't.
Mhm.
However, most of the world does. And right now, what's happening is affecting everyone.
Yeah.
Businessmen, all the way down to our
Yep.
kids, and it is
Grandparents.
Nobody's
literally
immune.
literally the number 2 killer in kids under 17 years old right now, and the number 1 killer is guns, and it's the number 1 killer for people 18 to 45 years old. Number 1 killer. So it's not a statistic, and we want to be able to really share their stories like you do here. And I'm so grateful that you
Mhm.
get to do that. You're doing this for others, and for me. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Danny boy.
Danny.
My baby. I have his ashes tattooed in my back.
Hell
He
yeah.
gets to go with me everywhere.
Story's working on doing that.
I am working on it. I have to solidify what I want. Because it's like a big decision, you know what I mean? So I've gone back and forth and I'm holding off. It's gonna happen, but I just want to be sure.
That's a good idea,
You
because
know?
I wasn't. I was just it was so bad. I just wanted him in me, right? I just wanted, and I wouldn't let, and I was so picky about who I would let touch his ashes that I was like, I have, you know, someone I grew up with that I call my brother, and I've always called my brother, the one guy that's never hit on me and that's always treated me like a sister, and he and Danny and I all grew up together, we all know each other. And so he was the only one I would let touch my husband's ashes.
Mm.
He owned a tattoo shop, but he did not do portraits. And he told me, but sister, I don't do portraits. And I said, I don't care. You're doing it because I don't want anyone else touching his ashes. So,
Well, shit.
So is it a portrait of him?
no, it should be, but it's not. It
Oh,
came out like
no.
a cartoon character. It's
Oh.
anyway,
That's the goofball in him being still here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had this idea in my mind, and at the time it made sense, but I was high. So, there's that. So, but, one of his other best friends, he owns another tattoo shop, and he's told me that he would fix it for me if I want. And I still have his ashes. So, probably will eventually.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's no timeline with ashes.
Yeah,
No.
They're
they
there.
don't expire.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably find a way to honor him more, with the picture.
Mm,
Mhm.
But yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, getting to know what you want first, that's
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wish I would have done that.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on with us, Sage. I loved getting to know Danny and his impact on your life and everybody's life who
And
you've
everybody
touched,
else's, yeah.
our lives
Uh-huh.
because of him. So it's that connection just like keeps growing. So we're living proof too that Danny's touched us in our
Mhm.
lives. Yeah.
Mm.
So thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're gonna see
Of
her next
course.
week too, right?
We are, but we do have one more question for you.
We do. We have one last question.
Okay.
Is there an upside to grief? Or do you think that there's an upside to grief?
Yeah, for sure. And, it's that honoring. It's the touching. It's the way he lives on in all of it. There's so much. It's the living amends. So
Yeah.
much. He's still here. He's still doing his work.
Yeah.
Love that.
The legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yes, Sage will be joining us next week. We're going to do a little mashup, actually, do a little something different.
First of its kind.
First of its kind. And we're going to start with some grief deck pulls, and then we're going to slide into some moments of knowing.
Yeah.
The moments of knowing. I don't normally share those out loud.
Ooh, so this is going to be a good one,
So
I
you
bet.
might want to tune back in.
They're insane, really. So it's great. It's great.
We love them. More insane, the better, because then other
Really.
people who have insane moments, they aren't going to chalk it up to like coincidence or
Yeah.
that was just weird. They'll be like, okay,
I'm not the only one experiencing these types of situations. This is real.
I can connect it to something in my
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I usually don't share them because I'm like, nobody's going to believe me except for the people that were there, So I share very limited. But you guys all get to know.
Can't wait.
Yay.
All right. Well, thank you again so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so
course.
much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share. And we will see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.